Hello, BookTube. Today for Tag Thursday, I will be doing the Omnivore Book Tag. This tag was created by A Cup of Books, and I saw it on Steve Donahue, so I'll leave links to both channels in the show notes down below, as well as a copy of the prompts. So the idea of this tag is to pick 4 genres and answer the following questions for each of the genres you have picked. So I have picked poetry, Alan Hollinghurst, the ancient Near East, and manga. So question number 1. What is your favorite book from this genre? So for poetry, I'm going to go with View with a Grain of Sand by Wislawa Szymborska. This is a selected edition of her poetry that came out in the 90s. I want to say I picked it up in the early 2000s from Book People. And I've had this collection ever since. This is one of the few poetry collections I have never parted with since I bought it. And I periodically come back to it, and I love reading this collection every time. It's a wonderful collection. For Alan Hollinghurst, my favorite book by him is The Swimming Pool Library, his first book. This is a gay novel set in the early 80s before the AIDS pandemic. It's about a wealthy young gay man who really has nothing better to do than exercise and have sex. One day while cruising, he happens to provide first aid to an ailing, older, aristocratic gay man who later takes the main character under his wing with the hope that the young man will write his biography. And during the research for this biography, the older man begins to sort of teach, sort of, I guess, introduce him to aspects of gay history that the younger man really could care less about, or could have cared less about before meeting this older man. And it ends with a revelation and a betrayal. And I'm not too fond of the ending, but when I have gotten on with this book, I've really enjoyed it. And my most recent reread, which was last year, was more on the enjoyable side. I have a mixed reading relationship with Alan Hollinghurst. It's a flip of the coin whether I will bail on him or manage to read him. Anyway, for the ancient Near East, my favorite book is, without question, Weavers, Scribes, and Kings by Amanda H. Podany. This is a new history of the ancient Near East. It came out just last year, and it is a hoot. As I've often said, this is history as it should be written. Its focus is on cuneiform writing, and Podany focuses on individuals who have appeared in the records who are not necessarily always kings or queens, but weavers and scribes and merchants and others. And it is an amazing book. Just absolutely, I love this book. And for manga, my favorite series is Fairy Tale by Hiro Mashima. This is a long-running series. It ended at 63 volumes. It's about a wizarding guild called Fairy Tale. And Fairy Tale is infamous for the destructive nature of most of its members, particularly the main characters, who are Natsu Dragneel, who's a fire dragon slayer, and his Exceed companion, Happy. One day while looking for the dragon Igneel, Natsu and Happy meet a young wizard named Lucy, who's a celestial spirit mage, and together they form the core nucleus of the team that Fairy Tale follows. Other members are Gray, Fullbuster, Natsu's rival, who's an ice make wizard, and Ursa Scarlet, who's the most powerful female member of the guild, who is able to change out her armors, which each have certain magical effects. Later, a young Sky Dragon Slayer named Wendy Marvel and her Exceed companion Carla joined the team, and other members of Fairy Tale join as the arc requires. I love this series. I recently read the entire series at the beginning of this year, and I had a blast. And I'm looking forward to doing it again next year. So, yeah. Next question. What book are you currently reading or just finished from this genre? So, for poetry, I just finished, because in this case I'm not going to count a bale, The Anchorage by Mark Wunderlich. This is his first collection, and it's a mixed bag. There are some poems that I thought really worked, that really kind of show Wunderlich finding his poetic voice, but other poems were really just clunky. So it's a mixed bag, but I'm happy I read it. The last book I read by Alan Hollinghurst, and this time I'm going to go with a bale, is The Spell. So this is his third novel. It's, I think, set in the 90s. It's about four gay men, one who's a civil servant whose longtime boyfriend has left him for a gay architect who's rather older. And eventually, the first character begins dating the architect's gay son and goes from there. So, when I first read the book it's been forever, it took me like a Bill Redemption to actually get into it. And I hadn't read it in years since then. And so periodically I want to reread or read all of Alan Hollinghurst, and usually end up bailing on the swimming pool library, but this time it was the next two books that didn't quite work out. But anyway. So the last book I read from the ancient Near East, or about the ancient Near East, was Assyria by Eckart Frahm. This is a history of Assyria, which was a northern Mesopotamian kingdom that initially started off as a city-state that gradually grew into one of the world's first empires. I have mixed feelings for this book. There are some really good parts about it, and then there are some parts that were a bit annoying. So, and for manga, the last book I read was last week, and that was Magi, the Labyrinth of Magic, Volume 8 by Shinobu Ohtaka. So, Magi, the Labyrinth of Magic is about a young Magi, a young wizard named Aladdin, who travels a world inspired by the 1001 Nights, looking for friends. One day he finds a young cart driver named Alibaba, and together they conquer a dungeon in the city of Kishan. Joining them is Morgiana, who was initially enslaved by the prince or the lord of Kishan, who himself wanted to conquer the dungeon that was in his town. And together they form the core trio of characters. And I love this series. It had been a long time since I read it. It's been about a year or two, because collecting volumes of Magi is rather difficult. And I will talk a lot more about that in a video maybe tomorrow. So anyway, look forward to that. And next, Okay, so what book on your TBR from this genre do you think you'll read next? So for poetry, I'm planning on reading next, and this is going to be a while, so I might change my mind. But for right now, the next collection of poetry I plan on reading will be Night Journey by Maria Negroni, which I plan to read as part of my back to school project. So I've dipped into a preview of the collection, and I quite liked it. So I ordered it from Princeton University Press, who just recently had a 50% off sale, which should be, so that book should actually be coming in sometime soon. Okay, let's shrink you and put you back. For Alan Hollinghurst, the next book I will be reading, and it probably might be this weekend or next weekend or something, would be The Line of Beauty, his third novel, and the one that he won the 2004 Booker Prize for. So this is a novel set in the 80s about a young gay man who I think gets involved in a wealthier family and ends up dancing with Margaret Thatcher for some odd reason. I've been meaning to read that book for ages, absolutely ages. For the Ancient Near East, the next book on my agenda is Brotherhood of Kings by Amanda H. Podany. This is a book about international relations in the late Bronze Age, which is a fascinating subject. And finally, the next volume of manga I plan to read, which I will be reading shortly after I upload this video, is The Seven Deadly Sins Volume 19 by Nakaba Suzuki. I also plan on reading Volume 20 today as well. So, The Seven Deadly Sins is a series inspired by the Arthurian legends. It's about a young princess named Elizabeth whose father has been overthrown by an order of superhuman knights called the Holy Knights. So she goes in search of the Seven Deadly Sins, a rival order of superhuman knights who 10 years previously were accused of assassinating the then leader of the Holy Knights and trying to overthrow the kingdom. The Holy Knights have become tyrannical in their usurpation, and so Elizabeth hopes that the Seven Deadly Sins will help her overthrow the knights and restore her father. Elizabeth finds the leader of the Seven Deadly Sins, Melodious, and together they recruit the other 6 members and try to take back the kingdom. I am looking forward to reading this volume. Some of the more recent volumes I haven't quite connected with, but I'm going to carry on with the series because I do like the artwork. I do like a lot of what I've read, and it might have just been that particular arc that really kind of didn't quite work for me. But anyway, I will obviously report back Friday with weekly reads. So that concludes the Omnivore Book Tag. If you'd like to do this tag, consider yourselves tagged, and I will be back tomorrow with either an original tag video, well, I could do that on Monday, and just do sort of a variation on the literary white whales. So anyway, one of the two. And of course, Friday weekly reads will be at the end of later Friday as well. So anyway, BookTube, thank you. Have a great afternoon, and until I see you tomorrow, stay safe.